He's one of the most violent and feared figures in the history of the American Mafia. A ruthless killer, a cunning businessman, and a man who lived by the code until he didn't. This is the story of Anthony "Gaspipe" Casso, the brutal underboss of the Lucchese crime family, and his reign of terror in the underworld. Born on May 21, 1940 in Brooklyn, New York, Anthony Casso grew up in an environment surrounded by organized crime. His father, a longshoreman, had connections with the Mafia, and it didn't take long for young Anthony to follow in his footsteps. By the time he was a teenager, he was already working for the Lucchese family, running errands, collecting debts, and earning a reputation for violence.
Estimated 80% of the known addicts in New York City live here. They live in Spanish or colored Harlem. They live in tenements on dirty streets. And they buy heroin on street corners like this one at 118th Street and Madison Avenue. From a truck parked across the street, we observed the activity here.
They called him Gaspipe, a nickname he claimed came from his father's work, but others said it was because of the brutal way he handled his enemies. He quickly rose through the ranks, becoming a made man in the late 1970s. His skills in extortion, drug trafficking, and contract killings made him one of the most valuable players in the Lucchese family.
The bulk of the evidence for today's massive wave of subpoenas was gathered, we were told, at this junkyard in South Brooklyn, which served as sort of a clearinghouse for members of organized crime.
By the 1980s, Casso was running multi-million-dollar rackets in construction, narcotics, and loan sharking. But what set him apart wasn't just his ability to make money. It was his sheer ruthlessness. He had no problem killing anyone who crossed him, whether they were rivals, associates, or even law enforcement. One of his most notorious methods of maintaining power was his use of corrupt NYPD officers. He had two rogue cops, Luis Ippolito and Stephen Caracappa, on his payroll, men who would later become infamous as the Mafia Cops. They carried out hits for Casso, eliminating threats within law enforcement and the underworld. For Casso, this was just another way to ensure his dominance.
Today, 1,200 police agents launched what a district attorney called the biggest crackdown on organized crime in the nation's history. 677 subpoenas were issued for men and women linked to the 5 Mafia families that operate in the metropolitan area. A year of investigation preceded today's action. ABC's Bill Brannigan has the story.
You must know that if you get convicted on even one of these murder charges, you'll go down in history as one of the most corrupt cops in the history of the department.
That's true, Mr. Braley, but I won't be convicted because I didn't do this. Didn't do it, so I'm not going to be convicted.
But even the most feared mobsters have enemies. In the early 1990s, the FBI launched a massive crackdown on organized crime, and Casso became a prime target. As law enforcement arrested 2 members of the Lucchese family, Casso went on the run, hiding out for nearly 2 years before being captured in 1993.
Wives, children, they were ordered killed. Do you have any regrets about that?
I don't have any regrets about it. I never knew them. I don't know their wife and children. But it's just like business for us. I don't have any feelings about it one way or the other. That's what had to be done.
Faced with life in prison, Casso did the unthinkable. He flipped. He agreed to cooperate with authorities, offering inside information on the Mafia structure, operations, and even his dealings with corrupt police officers. But true to his unpredictable nature, he couldn't resist continuing his violent ways, even behind bars. His cooperation didn't last. The government deemed him unreliable after he was caught threatening other inmates and lying about key details. As a result, he was sentenced to 455 years in prison, one of the harshest sentences ever given to a Mafia figure. Even in prison, Casso remained defiant. He filed multiple appeals, tried to gain early release, and maintained his reputation as one of the most dangerous men ever to come out of the American Mafia. But his legacy was already cemented, a man whose brutality knew no bounds, and whose fall from power was as spectacular as his rise. Anthony "Gaspipe" Casso died in prison in 2020, succumbing to complications from COVID-19. His death marked the end of one of the most violent chapters in Mafia history. But the fear he instilled, the crimes he orchestrated, and the chaos he left behind will never be forgotten. What do you think about the legacy of Anthony Casso? Was he the most brutal boss in the Lucchese family's history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the world of organized crime. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.